Clinton surges in the polls while a defiant Donald Trump is set to address a campaign rally this hour. He's in Virginia, home state of the Muslim family he's been having a very public row with. We'll take you there live in just a moment. Also ahead, the reality of Rio amid a Zika epidemic.
The weather is starting to cool here, even as it warms up in the United States. And as a result, the threat of infection is pretty low.
We'll look at the health fears hanging over the games. Plus,
it feels great to be strong. It feels great to go and do what I want.
A weighty responsibility will meet the Arab weightlifter who's raising the bar for sportswomen in her region. Hello, I'm Lynda Kinkade. Welcome to Connect the World. I'm sitting in for Becky Anderson. Well, Donald Trump is holding a rally right now in Ashburn, Virginia. That's the home state of the Khans. You can see there the podium ready for Trump to arrive. He's been having a feud with the parents of an American soldier who was killed in Iraq. The Republican presidential candidate has been having that public spat for many days now, but in typical Trump fashion, he hasn't backed down. Instead, he's largely escalated that feud. Well, it's not entirely clear what the impact, if any, of this latest controversy will be among his supporters. One of those supporters, CNN political commentator Jeffery Lord, joins me now from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Also joining me from New York is Tara Setmayer. She is a political commentator, Republican commentator for CNN, who does not support Trump's candidacy. Great to have you both with us.
Thank you.
Hello, Tara.
Hi, Jeff.
Good to see you all, friends. Jeffrey, we'll start with you first. This feud started 6 days ago when the Khans addressed the Democratic National Convention. 6 days on, Trump has not been able to let it go. Why not?
Well, look, the Khans, I mean, first of all, their son is an American hero. There's no question about that. But it is very clear, I mean, you cannot, you cannot appear at, in this case, at the Democratic National Convention, address 20 million people and accuse a presidential candidate with all sorts of misinformation and untruths of various things, and then think that you yourself are not going to be involved in controversy. The Khans chose to do this. I mean, this is America, God bless them. But in doing so, you're going to get opposition. And I might add that we don't get anywhere near the press coverage for Pat Smith, who was the mother of one of these folks killed in Benghazi, who said that Hillary Clinton was directly responsible for this and accuses Hillary Clinton of lying to her, as have other family members of others who were killed in Benghazi. And the insistent media drum just simply isn't there. It's only there with
Jeffrey, but you don't see Clinton get on Twitter and attack the families of Benghazi people that died in Benghazi.
Well, but whether she's on Twitter or not, she's making the accusation that they're lying. And I can tell you, I was with Donald Trump last night, right here, about 5 miles from my home in a local high school, which was filled. Thousands of people, it was filled, and there were thousands outside who couldn't get in. He never mentioned the Khans. And I can tell you, in talking to the people, I'm recognized, of course, because I'm on CNN, not a single person mentioned the Khans to me. What they mentioned to me was trade issues or their jobs or Obamacare. No one talked about the Khans. And I think, you know, what we've got here is the media is essentially driving this.
But shouldn't you say that to Trump? Shouldn't Donald Trump be focusing on those issues as opposed to responding on Twitter? Every time the Khans speak, every time the Khans speak, Donald Trump has responded.
He did not mention them at all last night. Zero mention. And yet, when I came home, this was still being discussed. I mean, you know, the Khans have been, number one, they say that they're private people and they don't want to do this, and yet they show up in every single network. They've been on CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, et cetera, et cetera. I'm told by a friend in British television that they've been on over there. I mean, they keep doing this all the time, and yet they say they don't want to, they want to just get out of the whole thing. Well, then stop going on television.
Tara, I want to go to you. Many are questioning Trump's support for the military. There was a New York Times piece today that highlights that Donald Trump avoided being drafted to Vietnam 5 times. One of those was for medical reasons. What should we make of that?
Well, I've been very vocal about Donald Trump's audacity to compare his alleged sacrifice as a businessman building buildings to the sacrifice of our military men and women, particularly during the Vietnam War. I called him a silver spoon draft dodger. Which is true. I mean, Donald Trump ran around bragging about how his own personal Vietnam was him not getting STDs, running around bragging about betting women while our men and women were dying in Vietnam. I mean, so it's these kinds of comments and this kind of attitude that makes people shudder at the prospect of Donald Trump being our commander-in-chief. Just because you decide to have a politically expedient fundraiser for veterans because you threw a temper tantrum about Megyn Kelly hosting a Fox News debate doesn't mean that you are, Mr. I'm pro United States military, but that's what he does. So a couple of things to what Jeffrey said. First of all, the cons have every right as Americans to speak whatever they want on their minds. They've earned that right. They are Gold Star families, and they can absolutely question Donald Trump's understanding of the Constitution, given the comments that he's made in the past, particularly about Muslim bans and other things, that have been very questionable constitutional issues that Donald Trump has raised, even down to the whole torture issue and saying that the military is going to do what he says, regardless of whether it's illegal or not. I mean, the cons had everything. The things that the cons brought up were valid constitutional questions. And just because they did it on the stage at the DNC, we're going to politicize them and cast aspersions on their integrity. Donald Trump did the same thing and exploited the grief of Pat Smith during the Republican convention. That's the mother of one of the Benghazi victims. They did the same thing. And Donald Trump was so narcissistic that he didn't even listen to her speech. He called into Fox News and did an interview while Pat Smith spoke. So, I mean, to throw these kinds of accusations back and forth by a presidential candidate because he didn't like the criticism he received is beneath the office of the presidency. Donald Trump should have handled this with class the way that George Bush did when he was attacked by Cindy Sheehan. She camped out at his ranch, for goodness sakes, because she protested the Iraq War and she lost a son there. How did George Bush handle it? He said, look, you know what? This is America. She has every right to disagree with me, and I'm sorry for her son's loss, and moved on. That's how Donald Trump should have handled it, with class, but instead he acted like a child and lashed out at a Gold Star family. And not only that, he otherized them. He's made, hidden implications about the Muslim faith. He attacked the woman, the mother, saying that maybe she didn't speak, like there's something nefarious about her being silent in her grief. I mean, this is outrageous, the way Donald Trump is handling this. And Jeffrey, you worked for Ronald Reagan, that this is a blunder to the nth degree as far as communication is concerned. They've wasted days on this instead of going after Hillary Clinton's record, her dishonesty, and the abysmal economic record.
Let me just address something, if I may, about the draft. This question was decided in 1992 when we elected Bill Clinton, a thoroughgoing draft dodger, president of the United States, over a certified war hero, George H.W. Bush, and then reelected him 4 years later over another certified war hero, Bob Dole. Now, you can like it or not like it, but the fact that Donald Trump didn't serve, Hillary Clinton, let's not be sexist about this, she had the chance to volunteer for Vietnam. She didn't go either. So we're once again left with two nominees who didn't serve in Vietnam.
Well,
I'm not going to defend the Clintons on that, because I agree with you on Bill Clinton's and that whole issue. But the difference is that Bill Clinton nor Hillary are running around disparaging Gold Star families and claiming that they sacrificed as somehow that's a comparable sacrifice to military service. Donald Trump was a businessman and made money. That's not a sacrifice. That's the difference here. Donald Trump is the one who actually, in an interview in 1997, said that considered himself a brave soldier, bragging about his sexual exploits. That is offensive, and that's the reason why we're bringing up Donald Trump's deferments, which he received because he was wealthy, because he was in an Ivy League school, and miraculously got a medical deferment that he couldn't even remember which foot he had bone spurs in. Come on, Jeffrey, you know that was a common practice in the 70s to get out of the draft.
We decided this issue in 1992. For better or worse, that's it. It's over.
Yeah, but then Donald Trump needs to stop making comparisons, though. He's the one that's bringing this back.
Not going to do it.
He's the one that's bringing it back.
Just to focus on today's polls, the latest polls show that Hillary Clinton is well in front now, 9 points ahead. Firstly, to you, Tara, what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, it's a natural convention bump. You know, that's what happens. We'll see if she can sustain that. But the problem here is that Donald Trump has completely squandered the opportunity to continue to hammer her on the areas where she's very, very weak, which is on the economy, which is on trustworthiness, which is on the third term of Obama. He spent the last week, you know, espousing things about Russian hackers and, misrepresenting his relationship with Putin. He's complaining about the debate schedule. He's insulting firefighters and fire marshals because of the capacity at his rallies. And then this whole issue with the Gold Star family, which has gone on now for 6 days and counting. This is a nightmare. Like I said, Jeffrey worked for Ronald Reagan, who was a master at communications. And he knows deep down inside that Donald Trump is blowing it. It makes me question whether Donald Trump really wants to win, because this is not the strategy of a serious presidential candidate by any means.
And you're not the only Republican that thinks that. A lot of Republicans have come out and criticized Donald Trump. New York Republican Congressman Richard Hanna has said, okay, I'm going to vote for Hillary Clinton. He called Trump endlessly flawed. Jeffrey, do you fear that more Republicans will cross the party line?
No, I think these are Republicans who long ago abandoned the Republican Party except in name. Unfortunately, for the last 20 years or so, we've had a Republican Party that is increasingly about crony capitalism, identity politics, some of the things Democrats are for. These people have no serious attachment to the Republican Party other than the fact that they put themselves out there as representatives of it. But in fact, they long ago left the fold. So, you know, goodbye.
What has Donald Trump done that's been representative of the Republican Party for the majority of his life? He's donated to Democrats. He supported Hillary Clinton and praised her.
So did Harry Truman. I mean, so did Ronald Reagan.
No, not you're comparing Ronald Reagan. So you're comparing Ronald Reagan, who took about a 20-year transition to go from the Democrats to Republicans to conservatism in a very thoughtful, intellectual way, to Donald Trump just deciding in the last couple of years that it was politically expedient for him to become a Republican. And the Democrats back in those days are not like the progressive left-wingers of today. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all of these folks that Donald Trump has supported and given money to, and you're going to question the republicanism of other members who have served. It's ridiculous to make that comparison. Donald Trump's the hypocrite here.
The point, Tara, is that you've been making, you and those who agree with you have had months and months and months and months to make this argument. A year. You made them and you lost. The base of the Republican Party overwhelmingly chose Donald Trump. And when I saw the people last night, when I saw people last night, including, I might add, firemen in uniform who were there to support Donald Trump.
Only 40% of the Republican base voted for Donald Trump. Let's be clear.
We are going to have to leave it there.
It's a very small percentage.
Tara
This is a general election now.
Jeffrey Lord, we appreciate your time today. Plenty more to discuss. We'll have you back again soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, now for some other stories on our radar. Refugees dying at sea at a faster rate in 2016 than in previous years. That's according to the International Organization for Migration. It says more than 3,000 have died in the Mediterranean Sea. A total of just over 4,000 have died worldwide this year. Typhoon Nida lashed Hong Kong, bringing fierce winds and rain, but ultimately no major damage. Winds of up to 145 kilometres were recorded in some parts. The typhoon was downgraded to a tropical storm as it made its way onto mainland China. Thousands of mourners gathered in France for the funeral of a priest brutally murdered in his church last week. 86-year-old Father Jacques Hamel was killed as he said morning mass in Normandy by two men who claimed the attack in the name of ISIS.